Just do it.
And it's,
And
I have, I have Project Camelot. I have my own personal Kerry Cassidy or Kerry Lynn Cassidy, and I have Rebel Gene, and I might even have one others. But they put us on Rebel Gene, which is, of course, my least used Facebook page. You know, and anyway, just let's do this, and no worries, people will see it. I'll put it out on everything after. It's just,
do it, yeah.
You know, it's live technically, and we are being recorded in more than one place, which is always a good thing. So we're going to go with that, and I'll have to try to figure out why all these weird things are happening now. Assume, you know, they change a configuration, and then we're left to wonder what went on. But at any rate, hi, everyone. I'm Kerry Cassidy from Project Camelot, and I'm here with Simon Parks, and I am very pleased to have him on the show and his cats and the background. And Simon, we've been, you know, in touch on and off. Of course, we're always in touch over the years, and I haven't had you on my show in so long. So I'm really, really pleased to have you here today. And I'm sorry we have had a little bit of a rough start, but all that will be gone when I post this video on Rumble and on my social media and so on. So welcome.
Thank you. We always have issues, but you'll overcome.
Okay. So what I would like you to do is really briefly, because it's been quite a while and I have lots of other, you know, relatively new people, I'm sure. And we are across some different platforms. Like now we're going to what's called Substack. And I've got a whole new group over there, which I highly recommend, by the way. And since my website is under construction, it's been quite a lifesaver. And of course, we're on Telegram and other social media. So reintroduce yourself just briefly, and then let's launch into the whole big scenario that we've got going on.
Okay, great. Well, I've been going not as long as you have. That's actually a compliment, Kerry. But I really came onto the field regarding, you know, UFO intelligence whistleblowing, really, experiencing many non-human or some human, but mostly non-human experiences. And, you know, it's well known, my mother worked for, you know, MI5, or the CIA, I beg your pardon, National Security Agency. My grandfather worked for the CIA. And so all my life, it's been very interesting, lots of non-human experiences. And I went public with it. And then I decided to create a not-for-profit organization called Connecting Consciousness, so that people could share, you know, experiences, support each other. And now that's, you know, right across the globe. We've got over 100,000 people. It's free to join. And you know, we're still going strong.
That's awesome. So you did have a political career for a short time, or for many years,
I did. Right? I didn't mention that. Yeah, I was an elected politician for 3 terms of office. 2 of those terms in London, in Great Britain, and 1 in the northeast of England. And that was very invaluable for me, really, to let me understand the corruption that there is. And it got to the point where I knew that I couldn't get any further as it stood, because I wouldn't take bribes. I wasn't going to play any of those games. And there was just, you know, you hit a wall. And so I left while the going was good, really. But it was invaluable. I learned a great deal. And I really enjoyed the people who elected me, helping them, working with them, rather than lining my own pocket. So I'm one of those very rare politicians, Kerry, who actually cared about people. That's why I had to leave.
Sure. And we're thankful you did, because, you know, we had the benefit of your wonderful wisdom and, you know, background support, even in terms of Camelot as well. So, you know, I know that people are very happy to have you on the scene, continue to be on the scene, in spite of the adversity that both you and I have faced over the years. But you've made it through and maintained. So for those that know my work, and they're going to even know your work and, know the whole scene, we're just, we've been at this for a long time. And is there something that you would like to say to introduce where we're at currently on the world stage? Because it's such madness out there. And I don't know what you're seeing. We run sort of parallel, but we don't always intersect. My life has gotten so involved over the last 2 years, really, or 3, since the white hats hit the scene, if you will. That kind of changed some of my focus, not all. And so I don't do as many interviews, exploratory interviews with new people as I used to. I tend to do more interviews where I'm interviewed and try to analyze the political and social scene out there, as well as the world, the planetary scene. As you know, we both share all of that type of knowledge and interest, really, and audiences that do as well. So looking at all of that, looking at, it's been a long time since we talked, and my audience won't have heard everything you might have said unless they follow you exactly. And I know we share a good portion of the audience. I did a Connecting Consciousness,
Yes.
one of those things where
you were very well received. You were very well received
in Australia, as I recall, and they're charming people, and we had a bit of fun. And I think it went well. That was a few weeks ago. So I stay in touch that way, but you and I not directly so much on the air. So here we are. Can you describe what's your take on what's happening right now? Just lay it out however you like.
Sure, thank you. Well, one aspect that I don't, and I think you don't like, is that all the previous avenues that we would discuss, we were free thinkers, we could go where we want, talk what we want. We're now really being directed down to the political situation. That's why the Pentagon has made that announcement that all these UFO sightings are nothing more than secret military tests. Now, that's because they don't want a debate off Biden bad, Trump good. So once that bloody thing, and I will say that, once it's all sorted and Trump's back in office, I think that you and I and others can actually get back to what we're really keen on, which is the relationship between humanity in the multiverses. But at the moment, all of those other extra avenues are being frowned on. They're being closed down because they don't want commentators diluting the message. And that's actually very strongly coming across. Where we are at the moment, is absolutely crazy. I divide America separately from the rest of the world because it's so different on what's going on. But the threads are the same. With the emergence of the white hats into the overt rather than the covert, a lot of the dynamics have changed, and the way that we are related to has changed. And we have a saying in Great Britain that gloves come off, which tends to mean things get a little bit difficult in an obvious way, much more obvious way. So it's very exciting and it's positive because we know things are moving forward. But for the likes of you and I, it's incredibly challenging because we have to keep one step ahead of any tricks or traps or new information that comes our way. So that's really, I think, where I would be with it.
Okay, yes, and a good short summation, I would say. Now, yes, I'm glad you brought up the fact that we, this is even something I want to talk about behind the scene, but in front of the scene, I am aware of a certain effort to sideline me, if you will, by certain parties. And I'm not going to name names, of course, but just want to say that, there's nothing wrong with saying I'm aware of it. I'm not stupid. Okay. And so I have an incredible amount of protection, as I assume you do. You know what I'm saying? So I'm always amazed that even when they try to do stuff to me, whoever they are, I get protected. Something steps in and just takes control of the situation and helps me in all these different ways. And it could be small things during the day, could be what appears insignificant at first, could be that kind of thing. So I don't know what's happening in your life. You know what I'm saying? But because we don't really have time even in the day to to sit around and chat about what's going on in our lives, you know, and with Becky as well, who is also very involved in collecting consciousness, I will say, and, you know, your wife, and I love her. And so because of that, can you talk about, are you seeing, I don't know what you want to call it. It's kind of like, because as what I get is on, and I know you're a political creature, or you were. And so basically they're trying to herd us in a direction, right, as the masses, so to speak. And because we're kind of in the front, on the firing line, they want us to be sort of in certain roles going forward up until the day, I would say at least, that Trump comes forward, you know, in a public way, because for us, he's very real in the background as well. So what is happening? Anything you could talk, but you don't have to talk specifics, of course not. But what can you say about that? I mean, you kind of hinted about that already in your, you know, opening comments.
Sure. Well, the hearts and minds of let's just say the American people to start with. We could then say the English-speaking people secondly, and then other speakers after that. But the reality is that there are two groups: those that listen to alternative news and those that listen to mainstream news. So what the White Hats have done is, by and large, take control of mainstream, by and large, not 100%. And so there are messages now being given to the disparate group of unawake and unaware people who are just literally floundering and they don't know what the heck's going on. But the reality is that the other groups, the ones who are aware of it, are being directed towards a certain goal. Now, that wasn't obvious 3 years ago, 4 years ago, but it's become obvious now because we are in election year in America, and it was always going to be this way. And like it or not, unfortunately, the number of people who don't listen to me or listen to you is the majority. And that's why the Dominion voting machine law case won. That's why, you know, President Trump draws back from saying things on mainstream media that he will say on Truth Social. So it's understood that if you say something on mainstream, it actually has a serious effect. If you say it on alternative media, it doesn't really matter. That's how it's looked at. So if you've got key speakers like you or influencers, the thing with you, Kerry, is that you're not a let's talk about MAGA, let's talk about this. You are very much involved in the wider picture, and maybe the White Hats don't want that at the moment, and I've already said that. And now I'm on record 3 years ago now, publicly I said that I would not willingly or knowingly provide information to my audience that I knew to be wrong, but the White Hats wanted me to do. There are other characters out there who are quite open. They say they will lie quite happily if the White Hats want them to. Now, I'm not going to do that. If I give intel or information or whistleblowing, it's because I believe it to be accurate, not because somebody has told me to say it. Now, I've made that clear, and the feedback I've got is that they say, "Well, we'll respect that from you." Other people can do the games and play the games. I won't do that. So we have to stand on our principle in 2024. When, you know, in January, President Trump takes back office, then we can go back, I think, to some extent to what we really, it's not just what we enjoy, but what we think is really important outside of just this political game. So, yeah, everybody who's an influencer is being interacted with in some shape or form, Kerry.
Right. And so within that dynamic, which it's also changing my relationship with my colleagues, that I've had for years for some of these people. And I have back channel. I have, very loyal people to me who give me information. So not only did I have my own intuition about all of this, and there are some obvious signs of this, but I've had some direct information of conversations being had. And there is an interesting undertow up to that, which is that some people aren't towing the line because they can't be corralled, not because they're so, big and strong or well known or any of that stuff, but more because their personality doesn't allow the White Hats to actually come in and make their nice, quiet suggestions, of preferences, and I know everything's done very politically. They're not, slamming me per se, but there is a certain sequestering going on, and that also includes data. Now, okay, so we're in a very weird playing field because for a long time, secrecy was understood. I was challenging the secrecy, I think you were, and occasionally we would get something through on our own. We were putting ourselves out on a limb, maybe by ourselves. No one was going to say yay or nay, and we were just allowed to do that. Okay, so we did that. But now there's something else going on. There is some kind of it's a circling of the wagons, I think you might call it, to where they're getting ready for some big launch, or the big launch. And I also have a very key question for you, which is Juan O'Savin has said many times lately, the last year really, that he doesn't think the election will happen on time. Now, I don't know if in the last day or two he changed his mind, but I do believe as a White Hat that he is following the White Hat way. And he's also listening to an AI that is probably saying what it appears to be saying, which is the same thing all the time. So something is supposed to intervene. And I have always, my intuition says that's going to happen. Now saying something's not going to happen, it could be a week later, it could be a month later, it could be several months, 6 months later. We could go into martial law. I personally think that we're going to have an event that is going to be some kind of a standoff in the military sense, and that it's going to be international, not in the US. This is just my personal take. And that Trump is going to have to come forward as CIC at that time, because there's another thing Juan has been saying now for about a year, maybe 6 months, is that and he said that Kim Clement, a famous psychic, saw this in the future many years ago, that the US would be talking about having two presidents simultaneously. And this has not happened yet, but Juan has said this very often. And he said it again recently. So the questions I have for you is, one, do you agree that there will be a delay in the election? Two, do you see this two presidents discussion that, according to Juan, is going to happen in households? And that would happen, understandably, if there was this standoff experience. There's also, Juan has also said, a Cuban Missile Crisis type event, which makes people think of nukes. And by the way, of course, China has been putting nukes in Cuba. So that kind of lends itself to something. But where are you without all that?
Right. Well, first of all, I think we have and we are experiencing two presidents. And that's very, very clear. So
but this is a conversation. This is a mainstream conversation that he's saying.
Yeah. Oh, okay. Well, let me come back to the main answer. I personally, as it stands at the moment, believe that we will go through to an election in November.
All right.
Now, the only reason that we wouldn't is if whoever is left on the bad side, are we saying Great Britain pulls a rabbit out of a hat? I'm going to have to explain that for the audience. If the bad guys are able to present something which the white hats had not foreseen, that's
Right.
the only way that it would literally have to become a military action. My own conversations at Five Wall, along the lines of that President Trump does not want to take back office, come back into office with a broken country. He wants a country that's up on its legs and can go forward and do it. Now, if you have martial law, you have all the rest of it, you are going to have a country that after the American Civil War was many years in the healing and putting right. And they don't want to have to go through that again. So my understanding is, no, it'll go through to an election unless something totally unforeseen occurs. The White Hats are forced to respond within minutes, not days, minutes.
Right.
And that then could be some form of military inaction. Now, in terms of an event, that's still very likely, because regardless of what truthers are saying, the number of people in the United States who are fully aware is very small. The majority of Americans know that Biden is bad and Trump is good. They know that. Anybody's better than Biden seems to be the message at the moment, which is not quite what you and I would like. I think we would like a lot more. So maybe it's felt that an event that the masses can understand, and the masses could understand a nuclear standoff. They could accept that. Therefore, that as an event is possible, but it would only occur if somebody on the negative side had an ace up their sleeve, Kerry. As long as they don't have a high card to play, there's absolutely no reason why the White Hats need to worry, because Trump will be elected because Biden is unelectable. And what the White Hats will do is make sure that the Dominion machines don't work, that the corruption is down to a minimum. So that's the nice, smooth, easy route. However, if the bad guys have got the ace of spades or a king card, then yes, they'll have to do something. So that's my belief.
Okay, well, that's laying it out very clearly. So, we're going to go on record here. But, and I can't completely disagree with you either. I don't have really a horse in this race other than a general desire to see Trump in office in a big way, in a forward way, and so that the country acknowledges that. How it happens, if through one way or another, it's all the same to me. But what we were talking about before, just so to link this up for people, is that they're still circling the wagons in a thought. They're planning for an election. That's why they're circling the wagons right now.
Yeah,
there does appear to be a timeline put onto us at this time to get Trump into office. I would say during this year, if by the end of the year through an election or through some other means. But I do have some sort of thoughts about possible things that could occur. So I'd like to run those by you just for fun and interest, and see what you think. Okay.
Sure.
So one of the scenario, one can think these scenarios through, but let's look at Taiwan. So Taiwan is in a situation where, and this is where I brought up Cuba and China putting supposed missiles or nukes in Cuba, this is the terminology. The actual weapons they're going to use, and even when I talk about nukes, I think it's kind of old school. We just call them nukes so that people understand what we're talking about. But the reality, as you know so well, and I certainly know, coming from the secret space program information, that it could be all kinds of weapons. They're not limited to conventional nukes even. So what we're talking about are a standoff, China being prevented from going into Taiwan and maintaining their sovereignty and taking that over. And the idea that we in some way interfere with that so that they at the same time come over to Cuba and make their presence more obvious. I don't know if that's a possibility. I'm throwing that out. Okay, and then there's Putin. Putin is being pushed up against the wall right now, again, by NATO, as you must know. And Juan made a very big thing the other day about how they're sending a lot of, you could call them people of color, but specifically troops, young men that are Black, that have enlisted and are kind of gung-ho to do something. And they're being sent over to Ukraine, I think, as we speak, by the Biden show, in theory. And that, what in the hell are they going to do over there? As far as I'm concerned, that war is over, like super over. But nonetheless, there's something they want to stir up over there. And that indicates to me that they're trying to do something to provoke Putin. And Putin is not going to stop and ask Trump's permission, in my opinion, as to whether he should do a standoff kind of thing. Now, there may be an understanding in the back sense of it, because Putin is as wily as they come, as well informed as they come. And maybe Tucker's interview told the world that, not you, certainly. But you know what I mean? I mean, you would already know this. But so we're looking at a man who knows how to play chess, 5D chess if necessary, and that he may have a move in mind to make a statement towards NATO that would actually provoke Trump having to come forward, do his thing with, as saying, I have the codes and I'm the CIC, and the military saying that on his behalf, and something going down in that way. So that's another alternative. There are some unforeseen things. There are earth change things that are been hinted at right now that have to do with solar flares and EMPs and things of this nature. There's a predictor out there right this minute, I think, saying something is even Ole Damagard just came on, I think, with Michael Jaco's show, saying he's predicting something in Florida, in Cape Canaveral area or something like that. I didn't get the whole thing. So just throwing these things out, there's probably there's at least, maybe 4 or 5 other options out there in the playing field. And then, as we know from the Lahaina experience, we can get something coming out of left field, so to speak, kind of more like you were talking, that would kind of shock us and be in a placement on the globe that we did not expect. So any thoughts?
Right. What you've rolled out here is exactly what the White Hats want, which is a lot of fear. And when I say it's what the White Hats want, what the White Hats are aiming at the unawakened, unaware, because they read newspapers. They don't do what we do. And in Great Britain, we had a general who came out and started talking about, we're going to have to conscript men in the British Army, we're going to have to fight. President Trump does not want to come back to a country, a world that can't unite. White Hats have husbands and wives, children and grandchildren as well, and they have no intention of letting the earth become toast. Putin and Trump are the closest friends, as is Xi Jinping. And your new audience won't know that I have actually Skyped, the Putin, 15-minute conversation with him. So I have some idea of the man. And I can assure you, that Putin and America and China are operating on a very, very close wavelength. However, it's true what you've said. On a couple of occasions, Putin has felt that because of the mass politics in, Capitol Hill, that the Americans have dragged their feet. And sometimes Putin has forced the issue by making a statement or doing something just to say to the white hats in the West, come on, get your act together. We have a plan here. Now, I'm really glad to hear what you said about the war is over. There is a war between Russia and Ukraine, but it's not a war that any historian would understand. And I urge people, and I really mean it, just read a decent history book. 5 million Russian soldiers overran Germany. 5 million. If Russia really wanted to take out NATO in a conventional way, it absolutely could. So what we've got is just a theatrical performance. Now, I know that Juan O'Savin has his role to play.
Right.
I do not believe that the White Hats willingly want to seriously put this planet in any real danger. Now,
I agree.
I think there will be a gentleman's agreement. Sounds very sexist, but I believe there will be a gentleman's agreement on who will control Taiwan after Trump has come back into office. I think that a number of locations are going to change who they report to. I think there will be a redrawing of some geographical boundaries, but it won't be through war. It will be actually through negotiation. So I don't hold with that. If there is an event, then it'll be an event that is closely controlled. It won't be like a crazed madman running around with a big hammer. It will be a well-controlled operation designed to seize back for the good, but not in a way that does collateral damage. So I don't go down this road. Look, we are just a few short months away now from a real election. If the White Hats wanted to do this, they'd have done it 2 years ago. That's my first point. My second point is, if it was all going to become obvious like this, why is everything covert? Why are the courts martials all in private? Why is nothing being shared in the mainstream media? And the reason is because neither side want to share that. And ultimately, it means that it'll be a long time before the full truth comes out. And I used to talk about my candy store for our American audience, which is, if you run a candy store, do you report exactly what's going on so all of your employees go home and never come back because they're so shattered and so upset and traumatized, and you don't make any money, your business goes down? Or do you just quietly change the guy at the top and take control, and your business is running as usual? And everything I've seen since 2020 shows me that the White Hats want it done quietly, with no fuss, and any physical event is purely designed to deliver the end result.
Okay. But there is a problem with that, and it has to do with the statements that Juan has made. Had he not made these statements, then we could just sail along sort of in the dark, if you will. He's one of the few spokespeople they have, as you may know. And I don't think that he really wants to be sort of exposed as being a complete fool at the end of the story. So there's, I know that I'm not saying, he's quite wily in the way that he delivers his stories and all that, everything. And he tucks in some truth, which is valuable, but at the same time, he has said, like I said, these bald statements that you can't really get out from under, if you will, unless you just say, oh, well, I was wrong and something changed. So that's kind of where we're at. Now, there's a number of politicking going on and sequestering and so on. There is Benjamin Fulford actually came out recently because Trump has made a statement about the vax helping cancer victims when in fact it's caused cancers, and is insane, like to the nth degree, and has infuriated, I know anyone who read it, but certainly the MAGA people. And, I sent it to Juan saying, this is absolutely insane. And Fulford says it's the double of Trump who put that out. And it would sound like they don't have proper control over that guy. But whatever it is, now this is, again, an interesting tactic. And I think you can't look at these. You're a politician. You can't look at it superficially. So the one thing about making a statement like that, I don't think they're worried about losing the MAGA people over something like that, but they might gain, I know you're probably going to say, some, what we call rhino Republicans who still love vaxes to their detriment, and some fence holders of the Dems. What do you think? Is that more or less what you might think about that? Because it is insane. And people write to me and they just go crazy when he does this.
Right. Well, I know there was a big backlash on Twitter to that what he said. But again, if you're a MAGA person, okay, and all you do is you mix with MAGA people, or you're a Democrat and all you mix is with Democrats, you just see the world from one perspective. What Trump, and I believe Trump is intending to fight an election. Now, he therefore makes statements which appeal to the people who vote in America who are sitting on the fence, because many, many years of programming has made human beings believe that vaccinations are good for them. So one of the backlashes for the mainstream was literally being a vaccination denier. So by throwing that in, what Trump has very cleverly done with that group of people is appeal to their pre-programmed notion. Now, when a MAGA person hears that, what are they going to do? Vote for Joe Biden? No, they're not. So he's not going to lose them. But this election will be won or lost, not by the MAGA, but by the large number of people who are neither one thing or the other, the swing voters. We're going to have a lot of fighting, and I mean that political fighting, over the young vote in America, because a large number of under 25s will want to vote Democrat, not because they like Biden, but because they've been so screwed in the head by the education system over the last 10, 15, 20 odd years, that, that this is the battleground. And MAGA people perhaps have lost the understanding that there's a wider audience that have to be engaged with. Now, when you're in the military, sometimes you have to do something that doesn't perhaps look good or feel good, but it has been predicted by the quantum computer that it is a necessity to do that. Now, that's another reason why I don't think we're going to go down this very drastic way, because as I said on my last talk that I did locally, three countries have a quantum computer, a real quantum computer: America, China, and Russia. And all of those three are working together. And some of those machines are off planet. One machine is in planet, but in a vacuum, so it's actually in zero space, because they don't work if they're in a normal environment, as you know. Now, that has given the good guys such a tremendous edge that there really doesn't need to be a huge event unless it's stage managed, or somehow we're going off topic now. I get upset if we don't talk about flying saucers in a while, Kerry. If some alien group suddenly arrive and do a deal with the rump evil forces and try and give them some form of technology to balance the books, that's what I mean. by the good guys having to literally pull out an event, because as it stands, the bad guys are beat. They are totally beat, but they still have the ability to do small, very nasty, despicable things. But they would require an injection of support from a very long way away before the White Hats felt that it was a very serious situation.
Okay. Now, it's good that you mentioned this. Now, I have a couple things that are peripheral that, because you're British, we need to talk about very briefly, nothing big. But the thing is that there is something going on in the changing of the guard in terms of Charles, the death of Charles, and William taking over the throne and being given supposedly kingship over Israel. And these are things, by the way, you may or may not know that Juan has given lectures on. And seeing that William is the Antichrist for our time. Now, Obama was also an Antichrist figure. There are other figures in history that have been in these roles. It's not one person ever, so people don't go off the deep end here. What I'm saying is there's a role, and this is something that's worth looking at. Now, Kate Middleton there's some, big thing going on, and I don't know if you know this person called the Real Police Chief of Police, and he's a former chief of police of Colorado. I had him on my show. I asked him every question under the sun. He's kind of a fun guy. We kind of hit it off. But bottom line, he has a website, buymeacoffee.com/truther, and not the fake on Twitter, but the fake on Twitter is now gone, but could reappear at any time. So just be aware of that. But I post on my Telegram about things he's saying, and he did address the Middleton's thing, and he does say she's in witness protection. So, and it's possible the children are about to be in witness protection as well. So do you want to say anything about, I know you're British, you live there, so you don't actually want to get anybody to target you. So I appreciate you might not want to hit this head on, but do you have anything to say for Americans that might be looking at that situation?
Okay, well, I'm British in the sense that I am, the government as officially saying I'm British, but I was born in Africa. So I have a great connection with Africa. I'm a white African, although I have a British passport. If we go right back to when President Trump officially became president and he came to visit the Queen, and the audience will know that he kept the Queen waiting, first time anyone had ever kept the Queen waiting on the steps, and he made sure that she walked behind him. And these were very important signs to her own people, the bad guys, that she had agreed to go down the way that Trump had offered. So it meant that the huge power that Queen Elizabeth II had would not be turned against the White Hats. And in return for that, she got quite a bunch of policies through, can we say that? If we went in a time machine forward 50 years to a British bookshop, we would still see the royal family being held in great esteem, because the deal that she struck with Trump was that the legacy of the royal family would remain. Now, that doesn't mean that individuals can't be taken out. And that's exactly what's happened. Those who can work with the White Hats will be left to work with the White Hats. Look, I had a meeting, gosh, it must be 4 years ago now, with Naval Intel, who came to London, and I met in a hotel, and that Naval Intel officer had a meeting with William right back then, who was already acting for the Queen, the royal family, and so the White Hats have always decided that it's William that they want to deal with. That was the case back then, and it's the case back now. What will happen is that a lot of games are being played around at the moment in terms of who is perceived as a good person and who is perceived as a bad person. Okay, so I've just been told that your video's been live feed's been shut down.
Has been
Shut.
Okay, so live on Facebook is stopped.
Is that right?
Well, I'm looking at Facebook and it is up. It's working.
Okay, we've just been told by our sources that it's people are being told it's gone down, but you're still reporting it's working.
Yeah, I still see. So hold on one second. We've got a comment thing here. Yeah, I still hold on a second. I've going to the video on the page on my site.
Come back
up. Some people say they see me. It's fine. They're still watching us on Facebook.
Okay,
so,
good.
You know, there are games being played, but this is being recorded. Okay, we are still live. And I know that I'm recording this as well on Zoom. Let's keep this in, because what it does do is it just reminds the audience that there are certain topics that those people who still control some elements don't like. Look, the British people, by and large, love the royal family. Even President Trump said that his mother had the greatest respect for Queen Elizabeth II. And so if you destroy publicly a loved figure, doesn't matter whether they're good or bad. If you do that, the damage to the psyche of the people of that country could be so harmful that you can never physically engage with them again for many, many years. And so I think what the White Hats are saying is that the royal family is an institution in Britain. Publicly, they'll leave it alone. Privately, individuals are being removed, replaced with body doubles or clones, whatever you want. But the individual who they believe they can do business with is now being got ready so that he will be, when Trump comes back, he will be the person that basically will put a lot of influence on whichever British government we have. So that's where I think. Okay, fair enough. I think that's a good explanation to kind of cover some areas that Americans won't think along those lines, and the rest of the world as well, probably perplexed at this time. So we'll just go with that explanation for the moment, as well as the things that the real chief of police is saying. Now, there is another little piece of information that I think you might have, because you have this, so you have their mother that was in, I think, correct me, she was in CIA, but your grandfather, was he the one in MI5 or 6? No. Which one?
Right, no. So for the audience who don't understand, why should they, the way that the British work, MI6 is the external security service for Great Britain. MI5 is the internal security service. Now, my mother, because she was a British subject, she became MI5, but was really working for the National Security Agency of America. My grandfather, who was a diplomat, he was enrolled into MI6 because he was a diplomat. He could go around the world. So he was a great spy for them, but he was really working for the CIA. So basically, whatever they discovered, whatever they talked about, had to go back to America, to their own respective points. Now, because Becky's just going to take a call. Take it. I might just have to ask you to hold it because Five Wall are calling me. So I might just have to ask you to just hold on. But
no worries. I can fill the space.
That's fine. Okay,
if necessary. So
basically, what was happening was that my mother was involved in, she was involved in alien technology. My grandfather wasn't. My grandfather was much more the archetypal British gent spy. And between the
But
two
didn't
of
they
them,
both dabble in the occult? And you were taught by both of them. And
yes,
this question is a lead up to
sure.
something, the actual
Yeah, yeah.
question.
My grandfather was definitely into black magic, but my mother was into white magic. So they both. Are we okay? What time? No, I can. I can. Is she on the line now? What time is she phoning me? I haven't got a number. You got a number there.
Mhm.
Right. Okay. That's fine. Okay. All right. It's all right. I can call them back.
Okay, no worries.
So,
But the thing is that, okay, with that in mind, just let me ask my question and then you can
sure,
elaborate a little more on that since you've answered
sure.
who is the white, who was the black. So,
Okay.
what I want to say to you is that according to, again, the real police chief,
Yeah.
who's also doing frequency healings, by the way, that are fairly successful from what he says, which is
Sure.
wonderful for free.
Yeah.
And
Totally.
he, so he had a publication recently saying that Michael Aquino had been executed. Now, I don't
Right.
know if you heard that.
Wouldn't surprise me at all.
Right.
It was very interesting that I never really understood how Obama allowed his brand of Satanism to be classified as a religion. So Aquino was able to operate within the military because it was seen as a religion. So I wouldn't at all be surprised at that.
Right. Okay. I just wondered if you heard it because of your background, I
Well,
was very pleased.
that was
I
a
have to
very
say, I was pleased with that because I think, if you know San Francisco, and we just went to San Francisco and we filmed San Francisco and the empty storefronts and everything, and the home of a lot of MK Ultra experiments, as you may know, the whole back in the day, Letterman Hospital, all the stuff that Douglas Dietrich has talked about. I don't know if you're familiar, but what we're talking about is the what do they call it? The Presidio and the darkness that exists there, and all kinds
Yep.
of craziness that still exists in San Francisco as a result of
Yep.
the experiments they did.
Sure.
So, Aquino was also instrumental in that area.
Well, look, Kerry, a lot of the people, non-Americans aren't going to know this, but a lot of the people on the sidewalk in the gutter in San Francisco, and I don't know another city like that, are literally people who have been thrown away from those programs. And it's no coincidence that the heart of the money world is not in New York, it's in San Francisco. And we know from our own contacts that if you're in a huge multinational, you go once a year to San Francisco where you bid for enormous amounts of money for your organization. So it is never New York. New York is what the public see. It is San Francisco. And I'm very aware of, not all, I can't know them all, but the individual projects that actually were closed down on the East Coast, but were brought across to the West Coast so that the public eye, it was sanitized on the East Coast. Think of Montauk and all the others that were on the East Coast suddenly disappeared. But also Michael Aquino did have connection with a couple of very, what I call young people who tragically have died. And that is a topic that I wouldn't discuss with you today. But I do watch all of that side very closely.
Okay. I know I'm keeping you a while, and obviously,
All right, it's okay. They could wait. They could wait.
All right. So I have more or less one other question, but I can't promise you it's my only other question. So this is the last more or less formal question I want to ask you, which is, are you aware of Juan O'Savin's trip to Antarctica, which he made public that he went there? Also on a somewhat secret level, but for some reason I was told about it. So they might have wanted it to get out there that, according to what he said to a small group that he supposedly trusts, 1,000 other people went down there at the same time. And this was about a month after Obama had gone down there. So what I want to ask you is, Juan has been very closed mouth. He's avoiding all the questions, direct questions about what the hell he did down there. I'm just wondering if you had any thoughts about that.
Well, I don't know whether he went down there or not, but I know that he said he's been down there. And we know that it is related. In the last year of Obama's presidency, he came to Great Britain, where he was shown the real Stonehenge that exists under the one that everybody sees. And just before he finished his office, he actually went to Antarctica along with a very famous astronaut who suffered a heart attack, actually, with what he saw down
Buzz Aldrin, yes.
That's right. So what we've got in Antarctica is a very interesting mix of Fourth Reich Nazis, non-human entities, and corporations who not only have developed technologies from what was already there, but had over the last, since the 1950s in particular, stolen technologies. Now, what Trump did was a bit more clever than Admiral Byrd, God bless him. And what Trump was doing was to slowly take away the influence of that group. Now, that hasn't actually fully happened. That group is still there, but the relationship is changed. So I don't know whether one of us has been fully, I really am aware of what is still there,
right,
and who's behind it. And it's something that the public will never be told the truth about.
Okay, well, I think that we have enough people that might be able to discern the truth. However, one of the caveats of this is also that somehow the former main, we might call it the main island of Atlantis, is also underneath that ice. And correct. There is investigations going on where they are getting technology to take back. Now, this is why Iran, and I know you might have picked up on this announcement, that Iran has suddenly come forward saying they own, I don't know if it's all of Antarctica or part of it or what they're trying to say, but definitely throwing down the gauntlet, saying something about that. And clearly they are not happy that they're not maybe being involved in this finding of treasure, which is, I mean, treasure in the sense of technology coming from Atlantis, the days of Atlantis, that they want to get their hands on as well. So that's an interesting development and developing story and so on.
Well, that's absolutely true. The point is that the modern Iraqis and Iranians can't claim to be genetically connected to the recent situation in Antarctica, but genetically are able to historically claim a genetic connection to what was there a very long time ago. And they are not being involved in retrieval. They're not being allowed to get the benefits of it. And they say that because they have a biological connection to what originally was there, they should have the right to be part of the groups and the teams that go out there, and also to share in the prizes that come back from it. So that's actually the situation with that. Right.
So the thing is, though, that it's kind of an interesting side note that if they're saying that, and they're saying they're related, they're basically trying to say that they're partly related to at least one race from Atlantis, right?
No. They are related to the group that was before the Atlanteans. A lot of the
Are you talking about Mu?
A lot of the technology in Atlantis was already placed there. It had come from elsewhere. They cannot claim connection to the Atlantean people, but they can claim genetic connection to the people who were there before that. This technology is millions of years old, a lot of it. And so basically they are claiming historicity. There's a long word for an evening. They are claiming historicity with that group, not with when we talk about Atlantis, we tend to have a view of that, but they're not connecting with that, connecting with the the history of the place.
Okay, fair enough. Well, I think it's, that's kind of a fascinating piece of information. Okay. Do you have anything else that you'd like to contribute that I haven't touched on?
Oh, bless you. No. There is so much. It's incredible. It is so much. And yet I feel that we're not really in the right space. I think when President Trump's come back, the Pentagon starts to take its hands off the information and allows the truth to come out. We're encouraged more to delve into that. I think that's the time. At the moment, the spotlight isn't on what we're talking about, which I understand, but B, I'm very sad about, because in order to understand humanity, people really need to know where the heck we came from and what's gone on. And unfortunately, perhaps the vast majority of people have got a very, very small attention span. And so the White Hats are saying, let's just keep you focused on this. And I think that once President Trump is officially back in, I look forward to lots more conversations with you on a much wider topic where, we get more assistance, shall we say, to broach different topics and to be supported towards going in certain directions. But at the moment, Juan S7 is really having to be damn careful, because the people who he is connected to don't want a whole bunch of this stuff out at the moment.
Yeah, I understand that. And they've made that more than clear. But now I have one small question that you might think, well, there are two, but I'm going to say one. Because I don't know if you know who Courtney Brown and his remote viewers are. Yeah, but lately they are saying that there are a lot of UFOs that are actually being purposely shot down, but they're not, according to Courtney. Now they can be wrong, these guys. Okay. So just want to say that. And I'm just interested to know whether you have also your ET downloads and or whatever communications you might still be having, right? And so I'm wondering whether you're aware of what they're saying is happening right now, because they seem to be thinking that our secret space program, in a sense, sounds like they've gone rogue. They're run by the dark side and they're shooting down all the good guys. Now, have you heard anything like that?
Nonsense. Because although we are very privileged to have a secret space program, I can again absolutely assure your visitors that its tech is not to the same standard as that which is on those races that are vastly superior to us. Remember, a lot of the craft that we operate in the secret space program are back engineered. They're gifts, they're back engineered. They're captured. Some of them are captured through the back engineer. Some are gifts. And depending which race gifts, that dictates whether it actually worked in the first place or it was just a trick, just glass beads. But you know about that in the Greys, Kerry. No, if a real alien spacecraft is shot down, it's shot down through a number of factors. And I'll just quickly say that we had in this British Isles, in a country called Wales, which is part of the United Kingdom, there were a number in the 1990s, a number of real UFOs that were shot down. And they were shot down simply because if you detonate a very small neutron device in the air for about 20 seconds, all of the control systems in a UFO go off and they have to reboot. And what the British Army were doing with assistance from the Americans was using a mobile energy weapon to open fire on these craft at the moment that they were rebooting. Also, these craft had to be very low to the ground. If they were more than, say, they were a quarter of a mile up, it wasn't going to work. These craft had to be very low. Under normal circumstances, a true, genuine alien craft is not going to allow itself to be shot down. There have to be a lot of extenuating circumstances. I will agree with them that a higher proportion of craft have come down, but that is because of a battle that has been and is ongoing at the moment.
Okay. And can you elaborate on that battle, even
That's
though,
not a
we're
battle.
not even
It's not a
supposed to talk
battle.
about these?
It's not a battle between Space Force. It is a battle between two separate alien groups. Space Force
Right.
are literally acting as a referee. It's been agreed there are certain locations where these fights shouldn't take place.
Right.
And at the moment, there are a higher proportion of wreckage coming down, which is, I think, keeping the retrieval teams incredibly busy. But this is not Solar Warden. It's literally two alien groups who have fallen
Okay.
out, and that's what's occurring at the moment. I don't see it as a big
Well,
deal.
are you familiar with the Pentrick UFO story? Well, I've done
No,
a
I'm
number
not.
of interviews on that.
I'm
Okay,
not actually.
sorry.
I apologize for not seeing that.
Yeah, because that's Wales, and there was some dynamics on some kind of shooting back and forth, actually.
Okay.
So I just wondered, that seemed to classify in what you were talking about. And this was a few years ago,
Kerry,
and I have a very good
darling,
witness on that.
I hadn't seen that, but what I
Yeah,
was shown was that the Freemasons, they have what they call sheriffs, not an American sheriff with a star. It's a much more of a Britishy thing. Showed me a piece of the melted spacecraft that had been shot down, and it to my mind, who's had some experience, it most definitely was a non-human craft. So I was very
sure. And
privileged.
Rendlesham arguably also involves some of that.
Rendlesham is far more exciting. Far more exciting. I mean, people joke, Kerry, but I am prepared to say that Rendlesham was Britain's Roswell. I am prepared to say that.
Okay, yeah.
Because of the type of interaction and the effect Rendlesham has on one aspect of the human race. What is it? 28,000 and 45,000 years in the future? You'll know, Kerry. I can't remember.
Oh, like P2, whatever. Yeah.
That's right. Yeah, which is absolutely right. And that's why, of course, the deep staters want to go underground, because they love being underground. And you know what happened to them in that aspect. So Roswell was a defining moment for not just Britain, but for humanity, because when what was the staff sergeant's name? Pennerton, not Pennerton. What was his name?
Pendleton. Yeah,
something like that. When he touched the spacecraft,
Jim Penson.
It took his DNA. That was instrumental in the saving of one aspect of humanity. And you know the fact of that he touched it. The spacecraft thought it was communicating with one of its own pilots and opened up a channel, realized its mistake, closed off. When that craft went back, it took that DNA back with it, that communication. And that is why.
That's interesting.
Oh, well, that is why so many people confuse Andromedans, and they confuse some of the corrupted Palladian groups. That's why this particular alien race is over 6 foot tall, because wasn't Pendleton 6'5"? Something like that. He was really tall.
I don't know, but I do know that they tried to kill us when I was going back over Rendlesham just like a year or two ago. I mean, in the dead of night. I don't know, you need to go into that right now, but so it's still a hot topic behind the scenes.
Kerry, to interrupt you, the reason it's a hot topic, and I don't know how else to describe this to your audience. If I just call this the letter A, just call this letter A here, and let's just say 24,000 years, into the future, let's just call that Z. And if I send a craft from A to Z, each time at the same moment, each day, that craft will appear because it's traveling through time for one, I don't know, millionth of a nanosecond, it will actually appear. So there is a communication channel at Rendlesham between the moment the spacecraft left and it arrived back in the future. And that channel is accessible if you have the right capabilities. And that's why anyone fishing around there, they don't like it.
Okay, very interesting. Well, Mark Richards has some very interesting things to say about Rendlesham as well. Fascinating things. But we don't have time to go into all of that. And I've got a whole interview that I did where people can watch.
Sure.
So thank you. It's so fun to talk
Pleasure.
to you because you touch on all these things that I really, love to investigate myself and so and so. So I think that people will really have enjoyed this. I don't always get to talk to somebody that's, I don't know what to say. I don't want to sound, elitist or something, but when you know, and we know, and it's nice to talk to someone else who knows and doesn't vacillate and bullshit around. You know what I'm saying? So
Kerry,
the best.
Yeah, I love you for it. There's a reason for that, is that there's a difference between people who research
Sure.
and they meet very interesting people in a controlled setting, and those of us who didn't come to where we've come to it through research, but have come to it because we have hands-on experience, which we consciously didn't ask for. And you have that. Listen, I got to go because I got to make the phone call. Listen, God bless your audience. God bless you, my darling.
You too.
And let's just do this again sometime, yeah?
I'm so glad that you came along. Okay, thank you.
Pleasure. Take care.
Right, bye-bye. Thank you, everyone, for watching. Take care.